Alrighty chaps, welcome back to another fantastic episode. This time we're back on the EJ. We're going to start working on the motor because there's actually nothing wrong with the engine. It just needs just an external beautification basically before it goes back in the hole. I do need to make a new clutch line, just the hard line that goes from the master cylinder down to the slave. And I think I need to actually paint the dashboard pink and install the steering column prior to the engine going back in, but we can do that over the next couple of videos because the steering column will go in much easier without the engine in, because if you know these cars, you know the steering column and that goes in through the engine bay and pokes up out the other side, whereas most cars actually goes out through the interior of the car, but not these ones, they go in through the engine bay. So I need to paint the dashboard, install the steering column, make a hard line for the clutch, and potentially make some hard lines for the brakes, and then we can detail up the engine and put that in the hole. But on this video we're going to put the engine on the stand, get the gearbox off, start taking all the accessories off it and make it all for a couple of days. But I thought you guys haven't had any car content for a while, and I thought I want to do some EJ stuff. So yeah, and I might do the tank on my Patreon because there's lots of stuff that I do on it, but nothing that extenuates to a full length of video. So I'm like, I do making a bracket or something, and it's just 5 hours of doing this one task, but it's not entertaining enough to do a YouTube video, if that makes sense. So I was thinking about doing that. Let me know your thoughts. But anyway, throw up an intro and we'll have a look at the engines. Alrighty, so here's the grey motor we're going to put back into the EJ. It's actually out of it. It does run extremely well, doesn't smoke, doesn't do anything bad. Just needs a Dulux rebuild. Basically just a wire wheel, clean up some of the bits, repaint a few odds and ends, and redo the repaint the gearbox, clean the bell housings, yada yada yada. I think that's what we're going to do in the next couple of videos. I've got to get the gearbox off, starter motor off, a few things off, and put it on this stand. This is a spare grey motor I've got. It's not seized or anything like that, but it's yeah, it could do with some loving as well. I was thinking about I have enough parts to turn this back into an engine, and I was thinking about doing well, let's see how bad it runs and actually get it back into a running engine, but that's why I put it on the stand, and then 8 months have gone past, I haven't done anything. So I'm going to pull this off the stand. I'm going to put that motor on the stand because it's all set up for it, and we're going to tidy that one up, and then we're going to paint it all up beautiful, take it off the stand, put the gearbox back on, and shove it back in the hole. The motor and trans for the gear for the tank, so this is not, that's the tank's original engine. That will go back in one day when I have all the parts for it, but in the temporary it's getting this Cleveland and C4 set up in it. So I've got that all together now with all the bolts and everything. It's all painted up. Got to change the alternator, get some exhaust, and actually finish cleaning up the engine bay of the tank, and then we can shove that in the hole and start getting that in there and looking good. Might as well do a bit of an update. So I dug this out. So we're going to do a clutch line and maybe a couple of brake lines, and get some wiring clips from rear spares and re-wrap up the wiring loom and put that back in the engine bay and a few things. I'd like to get this into a drivable state again, because it makes it much easier to deal with. So theoretically the fuel tank's in it, the fuel lines are in. I know the brakes did work and the clutch did work, but I've put new master cylinders on it. So in theory it's not going to take too much to get this into a drivable car again. Floor pans are all done, the rust on this side's all done. We've only got a dog leg on the other side. No rust in the plenum chamber. We're going to scotchy up that blue and repaint that pink in a video coming up soon. A few dents in the boot lid, and I can't seem to get a right hand rear door skin at the moment. I noticed Rare Spares don't seem to have them on their website, so I'm wondering if there is a supply issue. But I was going to wait for it before doing the dog leg, but I realised that rust doesn't exceed into the actual shape, so I should be able to repair that without needing the door. So, and that'll finish off the rust in the body shell, because the rest of it is done. So we're going to really get stuck into this and get it sorted, do some body work, paint the dashboard, paint the inside of the pillars, fix that, do all the door jambs, and start getting this really happening. Get it back into a drivable condition, because, well, it was pretty much stone's throw from there anyway. And we've got new mounts in the cross member to wireframes. Had a few things zinc plated. I've got to get a few more things done. Got to get the bonnet hinges plated. May or may not plate the accelerator linkages. That looks okay as it is. Play it by ear. But yes, we're going to effectively in the next few videos clean that motor up and put that back in the hole. And a bit of an update on the tank, some people do. Some new bits of metal. That one's on, 16mm thick, and it weighs a lot. And I've got this little piece here, which isn't bolted down, but it's sitting in place quite nicely actually, and it measured up beautifully. And what else was there? The mountains of bolts, but I had some of these made by a local engineer shop, or a machinist if you want to get real technical. These are the screws. I just didn't get them done with the slot in the top of them, but yeah, they were $20 each, and there's a few of them in there, and the slightly smaller ones for the front cover. And yeah, so that's the originals, and they're all looking pretty sad. But unfortunately on the tank there's a lot of them, so you got them up the back here. There's the little ones here on this radio mount, antenna mount should I say, which needs to have a new piece welded on the bottom of that. And there's a stack through here, there's a stack through there, all the little ones are through the tops there, and then there's 4 big ones across the bottom. So I don't think I've got enough big ones, but I should be able to make something happen. Yeah, I had Dad start painting up some of these cleats or track pin connectors, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them frog eyes. And it's starting to look smashing. And after those plates we're going to start getting the sides, which I'm expecting to cost a lot of money, because they need to be 1 inch thick, which is that. So that's an update on the tank. We're updating on the EJ. Now I'm going to do is set up a bit of a time lapse where I'm going to drag this motor over, pull that one off the stand. Don't actually know how I'm going to sit that, it doesn't have a sump on it. I may actually dig out a sump and rotate it and put the sump on with a couple of screws and then take it off the stand. But either way, I'll catch you up in a second. Alrighty, you might be wondering as to why I have a spare grey motor, and I thought to myself going, well, I don't ever plan on selling the car, and if this motor ever poos itself, which it could because it's over 50 years old, it would be nice to have a spare engine. So as much as part of me wants to sell this as a rebuild and have a bit of spare cash float around, I think to myself going, while it would be nice to have the money, I would rather have this sitting here doing nothing in case that ever blows up, so that one day if it does blow up I don't have to fork out $1 gazillion for one of these engines and then have it rebuilt. It's one of those circle of life things. When you have it, or should I say, when you want it, it's really expensive. While you have it, it's worth nothing, and then once you've sold it, it's worth a crap load of money again. So I don't, as much as I'm going to do nothing with it, it's like that, one of Newton's laws. It's like, if I've got it, I know that will never blow up because I've got something to replace it. So yeah, it's not been out in the weather for a bazillion years. It's not covered in rust. It's quite oily, and that's how I likes it. And yeah, it's not great. It's all a bit buggered, really. That's nice. That's the original colour there, but it's been sitting on, I'm guessing, a couple of bits of wood or in the ground or something. It's not great, but I'm just going to put a couple of screws back in it, roll it back over, dump it on the ground. I'd love to dump it out of the way, but over there seems like a good spot for it. So yeah, it's not great, but it is plenty rebuildable, and yeah, I don't need one rebuilt, but if I've got one that doesn't, yeah, basically that's good. This isn't, but it's quite rebuildable. So I've got, if this ever throws a leg out of bed, basically is what I was trying to say, I've got one to replace it. So catch you up in a second. You know, it's funny, I used to think cylinder heads weighed a lot. They don't. If you want to know what heavy is, work on one of those. I just about picked it up and threw it over my shoulder. I was like, so I appear to have gotten a little bit stronger since working on the tank. Like, that plate on the front would weigh twice as much as that, and those drive sprockets, they are immensely heavy. Cylinder heads, pfft, whatever. I was like, oh, that's cute, it thinks it's heavy. It's not. I'm just going to quite quickly wire wheel over the top of that. It's actually not a bad cylinder head. And I'm just going to sit that atop that motor. So I actually found all the sump screws, so I put them in. I figured the safest place for this stuff to be is actually together. That way you don't lose anything. And it's all together is better than a box apart. So if it's just sitting together as a complete unit, then you know where everything is for the one day it needs to be rebuilt. So I'm going to clean that up briefly. I might smear some grease just across the top of that, just to stop moisture from building up between the two layers, because you know you obviously want that surface and that surface to be nice. So if I smear some grease across that for its long-term storage, I like to think that that probably won't cause any issues. But the sump's back on, all the screws are in, so I know that even though that sump's a bit sad, it does have a full set of screws in it, so that's something. And when I put the head on, I'll find in that box of crap there a full set of head screws, bolts, whatever, and I'll put them on, and then as I get this onto the ground it might look like a complete engine. But I'm also putting it together because a pile of parts spread all over the joint is a lot messier than it in one giant lump. So sump's on, I dug the head out. I'm going to actually steal one of the studs out of that for the other one because it's missing the back one. I've actually got, I think, 6 spare grey motor heads, and I don't know how I've managed to accumulate that many. Plodding right along, I'm going to clean that, grease that, put that together, and then take it off and put it over there. You know, I had that moment where I was like, I don't want to take the flywheel off, I don't want to have the clutch off, but I thought, you know what would really suck? Getting it all beautiful, getting in the hole, and then 5 minutes later the clutch dies, or something catastrophic happens, and I was like, you know what? This is the perfect time to get the flywheel machined, get a new clutch in it, and get all that done. I think it's been done at some point, because that looks like well, pretty fresh surface rust, but it does look like it's got some, I don't know if it's been going that well. I've got other flywheels if that one's got cracks in it. I think I've got 2 over there or something. And I don't know if this clutch is any good. The springs are pretty loose, isn't it? I don't know if that's normal. And I don't see any sort of the stereotypical sort of wear indicators, you know, when they're unless that's how it is, but I would imagine that would cause an awful lot of heat. There's no like grooves in the actual clutch friction material. But of course I'm not a mechanic, and my mechanical knowledge only takes me so far. But I figured that's probably got asbestos in it. Probably don't want to use that too much. And it's, you know, it's old, so, and it's tiny. So I figured, get that machined. That's probably going to be like $100, I imagine, to get that machined, and then it's problem solved. And then another clutch, and then when it's putting all this stuff back on time, well, then you put it all in then. So I figured now's the perfect time. Plus I got to take it all off to get it on there. I mean, I could probably left the flywheel on, but and I noticed under all this grey paint is red paint. And I reckon it's been rebuilt at some point. It runs a little too well. So it's red under everything. Don't know what the story with that is. I gave it a bit of a tickle up because I want to be able to put that on, and I probably won't be able to get to clean behind it terribly easily. I mean, it's got a brush plug in there. That's only a cam plug, so it doesn't have any water going through. It doesn't need to be brass. That one's brass, so it's all been tickled. Don't know why it's red, but it's been painted grey. And one of these engine mounts was new. This one didn't have any grease on it, and it came off really easily, and it looks like it's been cleaned, whereas this one's covered in grease. So somebody, and this one's old and this one's new, so somebody has been tinkering, and I don't know what they've done. So the best port of call is to do it all again and know for certain, because you don't know what somebody's done to it. They might have been some sort of, you know, idiot. And obviously get a new set of leads. They're all rock solid and they're in there. I mean, they're great for if you took the cap off, you'd know exactly where they go, because the leads are pretty much holding their position. And I want to get rid of this from when it had an oil gauge on it, and put a new pressure switch in it. Just put that straight back in the hole. I want to fit that coil because I like them a bit better. They look a bit better, although I did know that Holden in their infinite wisdom did fit 2 types of Bosch coils, so this type and that type, pretty sure. So that's a factory coil as well, but I just like those ones better because they look a bit better. There's a bit more colour in the engine bay. Got to figure out how to get this dent out too. That's a bit annoying. And that rocker cover's got a big crack through it there. It's probably got something to do with when that got dented. Clean with kerosene every 5,000 miles. And I reckon I'll fit a new water pump. And whether I go and put one of my original cast steel thermostat housings on, I don't know. I'll be replacing a few things. I want it to be fairly reliable. So yeah, I'm going to try and get this onto here and then start taking some of it apart. I'm trying to keep track of where all the bolts and stuff go. Flywheel, clutch, gearbox, keeping everything together so I know where the hell they go. And you might have noticed that didn't weigh much at all. I reckon I could have thrown that across the room. And of course, I know it's looking a bit questionable on this aluminium trestle, but these motors don't weigh that much, and I do have it actually with a little bit of tension on that, just in the off chance it does collapse. This is not going straight to the ground. So I'm crazy, but I'm not stupid. Anyway, I will keep twaddling along and see you in a minute. Alrighty, now here it is, and it's 75 mighty horsepower. I know from when I did get it running that the can't undo that. I think I did it up really tight because I think the seal in there was leaking. I'll have to go back and watch a video, but pretty sure that needs a kit run through it. That looks like a nearly new hose. That's an old one. That's chunky, and you can see it's been weeping out the little breather, so I think the water pump is stuffed. There's a stud missing here. Stud muffin. So I'm pretty sure those are a stud with a brass nut on them, but that doesn't have the brass nut anymore. Or does it? I don't know. Might be. I know that there's a brass nut and a stud on each end, and there's a bolt, and then there's these little guys, but this inlet manifold, exhaust manifold are actually bolted together through here. And a keen viewer a while back said that this is actually the linkage off an automatic one. So, and the heat thingamabob is C solid, so I might see if in my stash of cylinder heads and inlet manifolds, which I do have some, whether I have a better one that is actually off of Manuel. I reckon I've got a better one, actually. Manuel. My god, is there fuel still in that? Oops. Surely not. It's been months and months, nearly years since I've run that. And I've got to sort out this thing because it was jury to absolutely spewing water out. Which is interesting because I've got one there. It's got a thing there. I reckon it had a... Yes, I reckon this is off one that's had a heater. And considering that I was actually going to run a heater on this car, because I don't know about you, but if you've ever driven an EJ Holden in winter, it's bloody cold. Because I have, I knew all about it, and I was like, yeah, heater would be good right about now. All in all, it's a pretty damn good starting point. And this is the motor that's registered with the car too, so I know it's been in there since 1993 because it was on the rego papers, so whether or not it was a changeover engine at some point, and then they actually did the engine change forms, and then I don't know, somebody gave it a pretty reasonable paint job at some point over the red, unless of course it was a Rico red engine and then somebody spruced it up to look proper, if I could speak English. But yeah, I'm going to start taking off all this stuff, dump it in that box over there, and might take the rock cover off and have a little nosy inside. I've never looked. See in there, it looks pretty flash as Michael Jackson. So yeah, I'll strip some bits off and see how we go. Well, you're probably sick to death of time-lapsing by now, but it's what you got to do sometimes. It's interesting that this oil feed line has got a few extra bends in it that it probably shouldn't have. That just is another fantastic telltale that somebody's had the head off and obviously struggles to put their pants on in the morning, because that's not very difficult. That's just, you know, undo it there and walk it out there and then take the head off. But apparently that is too difficult. I might have to put a different one in. I don't like the way that looks. However, it is spotlessly clean in there and through the top. I don't know if these have all been the valves have been done properly, as in like the slack's been taken out, but it's looking pretty flash. I don't know actually how much more I'm going to take off it today, because I need to get some gaskets and a few things, and so the old, I think I've got to fix this, is leaking. Might have to get a new one. But I thought you'd like the little foray back into the car stuff. I mean, the tank stuff is going to continue, but I might do that on my Patreon, I reckon. Whether or not I change it to from XA Coupe Guy to M3 Restoration, I don't know. I'll figure it out later. But yeah, she's looking a bit sad. Anyway, I think I might leave it there, chaps. I hope you've enjoyed this car-related episode. We're going to get stuck back into this. We're doing the dog leg, we're going to paint the dashboard, fit the steering column, make some brake lines, yada yada yada, and tidy this up. So the next few series of videos, EJ related. So stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you around, chaps.